Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about the new Square Enix customer harassment policy. I know there's a lot of other creators that have talked about this, but I'm going to throw in my 2 cents. But before I get too much into that though, I just want to make one quick announcement that I do have a Discord set up now. It's available for anyone to join. The links are in the description and on the main channel page. So feel free to join and join the community there. It's just starting, so there's not a lot of people on there right now, but I do have a section for you to suggest a channel. So if there's something that you're really passionate about talking about, go ahead and feel free to suggest that, and I will create that. And I just want it to be a place for everyone to get together and talk about their favorite hobbies and things like that. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get into this. Alright, so this is an article on bounding into comics, and it says Square Enix adopts new customer harassment policy. Final Fantasy Studio can now deny products and services to players whose interaction with an employee exceeds socially acceptable behavior or is harmful. Alright, it does go on to say, in seeking to protect their workforce from undue and particularly over-the-top harassment, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest parent company Square Enix has adopted a new customer harassment policy which gives them the right to take action as necessary, quote unquote, against any individual who threatens the company's operations or an employee's safety. It was announced on January 10th via an official post made on the Square Enix official website. This new policy was given the green light by the developer in response to a number of incidents involving a fan interaction with one of their employees. So going down here, it says Square Enix believes that the feedback, comments, and requests received from our customers are essential to the advancement of our group's products and services. Therefore, we are committed to strive to apply your voice in improving our products and services, explained the developer of their decision to implement said policy. At the same time, there are instances where certain customers take actions directly or through our customer support centers or towards our support executives, employees, or partners who are involved in the creation of distribution of our group products and services that constitute customer harassment, such as denial of personality, violence, defamation, intimidation, advance notice of wrongdoing, advance notice of obstruction of business harassment. Such actions do not only prevent our employees or partners from engaging in their work with a sense of security, but also causes disruptions to other customers. They asserted Square Enix will not tolerate harassment and will take action as necessary. To this end, the actual policy holds that should the Kingdom Hearts series developer determine that an individual has engaged in an action against one of our employees or partners that exceeds socially acceptable behavior or is harmful, they reserve our right to cease providing support services or to refrain from providing our group's products and services. Further, in regards to those cases where such action is egregious or with malicious intent, the company now reserves its rights to protect its employees and partners and take legal action or criminal proceedings upon consulting to police and or lawyers. Okay, so that's a lot to unpack. I just wanted to get that reading out of the way. They do have a list down below of what they consider customer harassment or exceeds socially acceptable behavior. So I'm going to go through this list and then I'm going to kind of comment on this as a whole, because after reading all of this, I can see some merit in this. I can see how some of this is reasonable. However, there's some wording in all of this that leaves me a little worried. And I'll explain that after I kind of go ahead and go through this list. All right, so what they consider harassment is active violence, violent behavior, abusive language, intimidation, coercion, duress, excessive pursuit or reprimand, defamation, slander, denial of personality, personal attack, including email, contact and contact form, comment or post on the internet, advance notice of wrongdoing, advance notice of obstruction of business. And then it says personal inquiries, repeated visits, trespassing by visiting or staying in an office or related facility without permission, unlawful restraint, including via telephone calls and online inquiries, discriminatory speech and conduct regarding race, ethnicity, religion, family origin, occupation, etc., infringement of privacy by taking pictures or making video recordings without consent, sexual harassment, talking, repeated stalking behavior. Then on the bottom it says undue demand, unreasonable changes or exchange of product or request for monetary compensation, unreasonable response or request for an apology, including face-to-face response or request for an apology, specifying the position of our employee or partners, excessive requests for the provision of products and services exceeding socially accepted norms, unreasonable and excessive demands for punishment of our employees. All right, so let's get into some of this. First of all, like I said, some of this is reasonable. However, I would say when it comes to the things like, for example, let's talk about like the act of violence, violent behavior, or the stalking and harassing, actually going to the offices and stuff. If that's the case, just call the authorities, right? Where I have a problem with a lot of this is there is still a lot of vague wording. So I feel like they could use this as any kind of excuse to just go ahead and say, okay, well, we're going to sue you. We're going to ban you from our games. You're never going to be able to play our games anymore. And all kinds of legal repercussions that could come of this. So far, my understanding is a lot of this stuff is based off of Japanese law. You know, it might be harder for them to enforce something like this in the States or anywhere else. But again, while this seems like it has good intentions on the surface, I can see where this can become a slippery slope. And then other companies try to follow suit. And then the next thing you know, simple criticism turns into being sued and being denied any products. There's an old saying that says the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I believe that that's kind of what's happening here. I think what's really bothering me about this is, well, yes, there is a list of things that have some merit to it and are reasonable. There are some wordings in here, like under the undue demand list here, where a lot of that can be misinterpreted or reinterpreted however they see fit, so that they can turn actual criticism into harassment and then be able to do whatever they want. And the other thing that really bothers me is they mention partners inside of this whole thing. Now, we all know that there are certain partners that they've had in the past that have been known to take actual just legit criticism and try to turn it into what they perceive as harassment. And so that again opens up even more of a door to make this go in a direction that's not good for the consumer. Ultimately, I believe at the end of the day, yes, a company should do what it can to protect its employees, but at the same time, they do not have the right to try to dictate what the customer says and does. If they're doing something illegal, just get the authorities involved. Do they really have the right to deny a service or a product to a customer? I mean, I guess that's up to them. I don't feel like that's 100% right. But again, I'm not even sure how they would enforce such a thing in the first place. And then imagine being sued over simply saying, hey, I don't like what you put in your game, so I'm not going to buy it. And then they look at that and say, oh, that's harassment. We're going to sue you. Imagine how ridiculous that would be. And you might laugh at that, but look at what's happened in the past already. I've seen other companies sue for less. Ultimately, all this is going to end up doing is hurting their business in the long run. And I think that what they really need to do is just leave the actual harassment up to the authorities. There's always going to be people out there, especially on the internet, that are going to do really awful things. So ultimately, I'm looking at both sides of the coins on this one. I do believe that Square should do what it can to protect its employees from actual real threats and harassment. At the same time, I don't feel they have the right to try to dictate what customers do or say if it involves legit, criticism. Now, if you are someone that does go into their offices or sends their employees threatening messages or things like that, shame on you. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on when it comes to these kind of things, whether you're woke or anti-woke, if you want to say, for example, any kind of like threatening harassment messages is not okay. Not okay at all. We need to be able to sit down and actually have reasonable discussions about things without threats being thrown around. I've seen that way too much in the past few years, and it is getting ridiculous. So to sum all this up, Square Enix, you really need to take a big look at your list of what you consider harassment and make sure that you are determining what is real harassment and what isn't responsibly before you lose customers. And then on the other side, if you're someone who is actually threatening or harassing anyone that works for Square Enix or any game company for that matter, shame on you. You don't need to be doing that. But at the end of the day, I am more pro consumer and gamer than I am company. So Square really needs to take a step back and really refine this list and maybe word it a lot better and not leave it so vague. Otherwise, they're going to be facing a lot more problems and customers will just start to walk away. And we really don't want that because I want to see more Final Fantasies and Kingdom Hearts games. Anyway, that's all I got for today. I just wanted to make you all aware that this is something that Square Enix is doing. I hope this doesn't snowball into other companies trying to pull this kind of thing, and we'll just have to keep an eye on what happens. Alright, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.